So one of the things that keeps coming back to me in my world through Facebook posts, newspaper articles, and other things that I just read online, or maybe it's just because it's what I'm grappling with, and so that's kind of what I'm pulling out of the universe. But it's this extreme polarity between living through the most extreme time that any of us have ever gone through, in that, you know, to just go outside, it's life and death stakes, and those stakes are high and extreme every moment of every day, juxtaposed with the banality of living inside for 2 months and being quarantined and getting every chance to do whatever hobby and every, you know, thing that it is you want to do. And how do you sort of live between those two worlds? How do you take that extremity of life and death and infuse it with the banality of everyday life? And I see artists dealing with that, and newspapers, you know, articles trying to grapple with that, and especially as a creator, as an artist, just constantly being reminded of death and our temporary status within this world is a really scary thing to confront, especially when, you know, we're quarantined inside and it feels sort of banal. And anyway, so the dichotomy of those two things.
My go-to is NPR Politics. They have an excellent podcast that they do a summary every single Friday. They will have updates, 1 or 2 updates during the week, and I find them very helpful. As far as regular information, or, you know, television, TV information, I will listen to maybe 30 minutes of CNN, Como, or Don Lemon. I might watch a few minutes of Rachel Maddow. Occasionally, I will watch Chris Wallace. And sometimes for grins and perspective, I'll watch Tucker Carlson. But they all lean a certain way, some more than others, and I really want to get perspective as to what's going on out there and what people are thinking. That's important to me. NPR Politics podcast summarizes it every Friday. I find that cool. They do updates, 1 or 2 during the week. Super helpful. Why do I prefer NPR? Because they're neutral, they're nonpartisan, and they're fact-based. And I appreciate that, because that's what I'm looking for. And I think it's a good thing. I think that's what we need. I think, you know, moving forward, or always, that's what we really should strive for. And things have just gotten a little bit chaotic, or maybe a lot chaotic. And so yeah, I religiously listen to NPR podcast, specifically because they're neutral, nonpartisan, and fact-based.
Greetings, Earthlings. Weird times. I think right now, trying to find some sort of stability is a challenge. I think I get this mostly from my friends and family and my wife, and just having some sort of continuity in my days and my life is where I kind of find some peace and some solace and some comfort. And it's important, I think, to have some sort of schedule that makes sense to me. I feel fortunate that I'm working every day, because that kind of helps me stay centered and focused, which is good. But definitely friends, getting in contact with friends and having these Zoom calls that everybody has been important, and has really been where I turn to get that stability. We're all just doing what we can.
Hey, what's up, you guys? My name is Sion Mitchell. Been doing some thinking about everything, of course, that's going on, and it's some interesting times for all of us. And 2 things I feel like we all should be focused on during this time is definitely our health, making sure that we are taking what we need to take to make sure our immune systems are boosted, whether that be herbs, eating right, eating healthy, and also just if we do have to go out, make sure we're social distancing, making sure we are wearing our mask, so we aren't contributing to the problem potentially ourselves. And number two is just as important as our physical health is your mental health, especially with this month being Mental Health Awareness Month. It's extremely important that you talk to somebody. You get what I'm saying? It's okay to get your feelings out there. It's okay to talk to a professional or a friend, an aunt, a sister, whoever the case may be, about your issues. Men and women alike, we have to take care of our mental health just as much as our physical health. So with that being said, health is wealth. Let's spread the word, and hopefully we can all make it to the other side better physically and mentally.
It's funny that the world is changing more and more so fast every single day that when you stop to think about, like, what's the most pressing issue at this time, it's every day. It's something different. It all changes, whether it's racial inequality, police brutality, coronavirus, which seems to have taken a back seat to everything in this crazy way. I think the most pressing issue right now is the one thing that we can do to change a lot of this stuff is to vote this leadership. Man, I use those air quotes because there is no leadership. Let's face it, I'm not going to name names here, but there is no leadership. And in order for the United States of America to sustain as a society, in my opinion, we need to change that leadership. What does that mean? That means that we all have to vote. We have to get out of our houses, put on our masks, do whatever is necessary to vote in the right people who are going to usher us into the next generation, the next chapter in the history of America. Voting on the local level for your DA, for school board, for city council, that's what's going to make change, real change at the local level, and then it's going to rise up. And of course, we do need to start at the top as well and vote for the President of the United States of America.
Do you know what it means to miss New Orleans? I miss it each night and day. At the foot of the French Quarter, about a block from Canal Street, the gray buildings brush the sky. They hold hotels and offices and long-shuttered restaurants. In another life, this corridor filled with sound and music and songs and tourists and taxi cabs, like a soundtrack for waiters carrying their tuxedo jackets on their hangers and bike messengers late for work. The corner of Iberville and Burgundy is so quiet now you can scream, and the only sound to greet you is your own voice echoing back at you like a pin dropping in a quiet room. They say New Orleans is the city that care forgot, but when you're on these empty streets, you'd swear that care is not the only thing that forgot us.
In 1864, Abraham Lincoln was reelected to a second term as president. And at that time, there was a civil war going on. The process of democracy survived a civil war in our country and continued and reelected a president. I believe that in November 2020, we cannot allow this pandemic, COVID-19, to affect the election process. In my state, they've already told us they're going to be sending us ballots so we can vote from home and mail our ballots in. And this can be done all across the country. You'd probably get a bigger voter turnout in that situation. So in no way should the election cycle, should our democracy of electing a president be stopped because of COVID-19.
This pandemic has forced a lot of change on everyone, but a great Vulcan once said that change is the essential process of all existence. My sector of healthcare has been shut down, so I've had time to think about what really makes me happy, and although working in healthcare makes me happy, I'm not quite fulfilled. So I went back to school. I realized that my priorities have shifted and I want to work deeper in medicine. So throughout this pandemic, I've been one of the many people trying to understand what's happening, and I don't have that knowledge. So I've been looking to all the scientists that are trying to find a solution, and I'm blown away by all the different specialties that are working together to find a solution, and I want to help. I want to be a part of that. I want to be one of the people that are fighting to help alleviate the suffering of the world. So I want to study pathology and help support these amazing scientists. I think helping create a healthier tomorrow is what will make me happy, and that's a change that I'm willing to fight for.
We have a lot in common these days. We're all sharing the difficulties caused by this pandemic. Each of us, however, have slightly different things that we miss. Mine is going to the theater and making theater. That's what I've done my entire life. Tell stories to a group of people sitting shoulder to shoulder in a theater. This is very different from seeing something in front of your TV with one or two people. What happens in theater is we make a small temporary society. 100 or 500 of us sit together shoulder to shoulder. We find out that we laugh at about the same things, we cry at about the same things, and we find out what our values are, what we share with one another. That's what theater can do for us. Someone once said the most wonderful thing. It said, theater, it's a social art. How do I know this? I know this because they send a book critic one book. They send a theater critic 2 theater tickets. That's what theater does. It makes a society. It asserts what we have in common. And that is what we'll get to do again once this difficult time is over. Find out what we share.
I think the concept of keeping a sense of normality during this time can be incredibly damaging. We're being told that we're supposed to be productive and go about business as usual when nothing about this situation is normal, nor should it be. We're living through a full-blown traumatic experience, and although it is completely natural to look for distraction, we also should realize that it's okay to not be okay. Let's not become desensitized to what is happening. Let's make an effort to communicate openly about how terrified we are, how confused and sad and unsure we are, because we all are. We're all feeling it. So let's do our best to try to be there for each other in a very raw and real way.
There are so many emotions you have during the pandemic and 2020. Fear, anger, frustration. You feel bad about your life, and then you feel shame because everybody else seems to have it so much worse than you. We humans have an infinite capacity to make things dysfunctional. Seems like shame and guilt and always that undercurrent of anxiety are always there. But one thing I remember very distinctly from the quarantine was hope. It was about 2 weeks there where we were all in this together and we were just united against a single invisible enemy, and it felt so good. But then fear and enmity and anger came crawling back to divide us, and sadly that's become the norm. But when I see all the people, all the young people demonstrating for their fellow human beings, it gives me hope. The demonstrations have been so diverse and so filled with touching moments. You have a choice to see everything, either good or bad, and I see the demonstrations with a lot of hope. I have so much faith in young people. They give me so much hope for the future.
I live downtown in New York City. I was here for 9/11, which was equally terrible to what we're living through right now with COVID-19. The screaming sound of sirens outside my window, the ambulances bringing people to the hospital, and it was heartbreaking because you knew a lot of those people weren't going to make it. But now with COVID-19, what we're living through is so much worse because due to the infection, we can't be with the people we love at the hospital. We can't sit by their bedside and tell them we love them, offer them love and solace. And we can't be with them when they die.
On times like this, with a lot of sadness and noise, I tend to go to people with a lot of love and kindness. And to me, that's my family, especially my grandparents. They always tell me their stories about their youth in Mexico, how they had to struggle every single day of their life, every single second, in order to maintain everything. They had to raise their kids, risk their lives. And they tell me this, that with God, anything was possible. And that helps me today.
It'll be okay. I'm not sure how. I'm not sure how it'll be okay, but it'll be okay. And even if it's not okay, that's okay too. Survive the moment without making it worse is my mantra from therapy, from my work in CBT and DBT, cognitive behavioral therapy and dialectical behavior therapy. Survive the moment without making it worse. That is my thing. That's what I'm trying to do. I hope that you guys are doing that too, and know that you're not alone. Okay, thank you for listening. I hope you're okay. Bye.
I just want to share the perspective of a 50-year-old gay man living in Los Angeles. I just spent the last 2 years in Senegal, West Africa as a Peace Corps volunteer. And I grew up in an area of the United States where there were no black families or no black communities whatsoever. And they will actually say that there's no racism there because of that. But when I left for college and when I moved to Los Angeles, I knew that there was some work I needed to do on getting rid of some prejudices. And what I've recently come to realize after 30 years of black roommates and friends and coworkers and work partners is that you cannot learn about systemic racism through good intentions and osmosis. You really need to dig in and discover that history that they never taught us about in school. So for those people that are living in places like where I grew up, you might not understand what is going on in the streets, but the successes that the Black Lives Matters protesters are having, not only do they benefit Black lives, but those successes benefit all lives.
COVID-19 has made me hyper aware of my surroundings. I have Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis, so I'm what you would call immunocompromised. It means my immune system is generally weaker than everybody else's, so I have to be really careful about my health. The only place I leave my house to go to is the grocery store, and I'm in long pants, long sleeves with a mask and gloves and sanitizer, and then I'm watching people literally not stand on the social distance stickers, which are 6 feet apart. It's infuriating because it's scary. You're not only being cavalier about your life, but you're being cavalier about mine. And it's frustrating because our national leadership doesn't seem to have one directive about when we should be outside again. Honestly, I don't feel safe. And I don't know when I will.
We have to hold our leaders accountable for the things that they say, for the ways in which they contribute to systemic racism and to police brutality. We have to educate ourselves with the vast amount of resources available, there's really no excuse to be ignorant in this day and age. There's really just willful ignorance. And the protests that are following George Floyd's murder have not only sparked an outrage globally, but they've also sparked a widespread recognition and a widespread acknowledgement of systemic racism and of police brutality. But that's not enough. There's so many instances where white people especially just tune out the voices of the oppressed for the sake of convenience. And that in and of itself is the existence of white privilege. And if we're not fighting against that, then we are by default complicit in it. So we have to be vocal, and not in a way that tells black people how they should or should not protest or should fight against their oppressors, but in a way that lends support to the cause and to the belief that Black lives matter.
For me, parenting during a pandemic is all about balance. For example, I am a highly organized person. This is my schoolroom for just one child because I'm teaching him at home. And I want to make sure that we stay on a schedule so he knows he's not on vacation from school. But I'm also aware that I'm not his teacher and this isn't a school. And so if he needs to get up and run around or be reminded that we can't just put our feet on the table in the middle of a lesson, then we have to go with it. These are completely uncharted waters, so the kids aren't really sure what to expect. So you have to maintain a balance between schoolwork and the fact that they're at home, and also the fact that we have to stay very vigilant outside with masks and social distancing, while also making them feel comfortable like everything's kind of normal, which it's not. But the most important thing about being a parent during the pandemic is hand sanitizer. All the time, for everyone, hand sanitizer.
Before 2020, there were vast disparities between how people lived and vast disparities between groups of people. And I think that everybody knew those disparities existed, but this time has really exacerbated that or brought it to light. And so what I'm looking forward to when all of this is over is change. I'm looking forward to a more sustainable system, an entirely new system that's sustainable and brings about a healthy planet, healthy connections to one another, equality, opportunities. I'm looking forward to change.
So before the pandemic, my dreams were always stressful. They were about my career or running late or being in the middle of the room and not being prepared to do something. And now they're all about my family, which is kind of strange because I never really dreamed about my family that much before this. And so now it's all Christmases and Thanksgivings and just being together. Sometimes it's in a weird place like a mansion or something because it's still a dream, but I guess even subconsciously my priorities have really realigned, and it's really all about family and love and being together.